Hello there, this is Wormatty signing on. I'm here to give you a brief introduction to some of the features that I put into my Jailbreak plugin named Jailbreak Basic. At least that's how it started off anyway. So let's begin by joining the red team. You may notice that the setup time is extended. That's because I've increased the bounds of the console variable that controls arena pre-round freeze time to allow players more time to switch teams at the beginning of the round. If you see any red messages in the lower left of the screen, then those are debug messages. At the moment there's a convar built into the plugin where debug messages are shown, sometimes in the chat and sometimes in the server console. You can ignore those. So, just like any other decent Jailbreak plugin, the ammo of my primary and secondary weapons has been stripped out and I cannot select them, and the game has switched me to my melee one by default. You may notice in the lower left that there's a heads-up display. Difficult to see on this wrap assassin, but it says not muted, and then it has something underneath which I will show you very shortly. Let's no clip out of here. So imagine you're playing a normal game of Jailbreak and the Warden asks you to do something, and people complain that they can't hear him. Well, normally you type a command and that tells the Warden, please can you repeat yourself. In this case, if you type /R.
Oh dear.
You may have noticed that in the lower left one of the HUD elements has changed, and that's because this repeat ability has a shared cooldown with other teammates that uses charges, and each charge recharges after 30 seconds. Whoops, sorry soldier. Also, when you die, of course, you're muted, you cannot speak to anybody, but you can hear everything that goes on. And to show people that, I have a permanent mute display in the lower left. This also works if you've been admin muted by the base comms source mod plugin. If you're admin muted, then it will say admin muted underneath it as well. And then that's pretty much it for the red people at the moment. So let us end the game and join the blue team. What you didn't see was when I used the repeat command, a training annotation was shown above my head, which asked the player on the blue team to repeat themselves. And it uses a random phrase and a random voice line as well, which use the Half-Life 2 base files, so they're more likely to work on other mods. I'll type /W, that opts me in to be a Warden.
3, 2, 1. Fight.
I have been made the Warden, and you can see that my name has been taken out of the Warden pool. You may also have noticed that my size is increased by 20%. The reason I do that is because it makes it easier to spot the Warden amongst the guards, so if the players on the red team wanted to kill the Warden, then they'd have a better time singling them out. It's also something I've borrowed from World of Warcraft, where in raid encounters they make NPC characters larger, so it makes them easier to spot and interact with. There is the option in the menu to return your size back to normal, just in case you're in a place that doesn't accommodate your model size. So here I am, the Warden, in front of all the cells. You can see that I also have a heads-up display, and that is for two things. One is the direction system, which is the system you see in other Jailbreak plugins where the players on the red team are directed to go somewhere using targeting annotations and beams. And the other one is the remote cell button cooldown, because even though I can press the button here, like anywhere, I can of course enter the menu by typing /JB, and I can trigger the cell button remotely. Although this particular cell button system has some quirks. For instance, if I go over here and press the button, I can still open and close the cells perfectly fine. If I go around the corner and try it, I'm told I'm either out of range of the button or not in line of sight. If the player can see the button, then it can transmit to the button. But if it can't see the button, if it's occluded by solid geometry, then it will instead switch to a range check. It's meant to simulate radio transmitters and receivers, how they work in real life. And the reason I did this was to make it more interesting in the game. Let's say, for instance, you have some players which are still in the cells, or an engineer uses the I can't remember the name of the wrench now, but the zappy wrench, let's say, to zap themselves back to the cells. Well, rather than just remotely trigger the cells with no problems at all, you have to make sure that you're able to run back or stay in range of the cells. So aside from that, you'll have the other functions as well, of course, the direction system, and that uses a shared cooldown just like the trigger toggle cells system does. I didn't use a beam this time because I felt that the beams in other mods were difficult to spot, so instead I made a custom model and a gradient. I also made it wider so it would accommodate more players, because in my experience I found when there were a lot of reds it was very difficult for everybody to squeeze into the circle, and it was also very difficult to see the circle because it was low to the ground and white, and in bright areas it would be harder to see, so there shouldn't be any issues in spotting this one now. As well as being able to cast a reticle on the ground, you can also direct prisoners to enter certain doors. If the plugin detects that it's you're aiming at a door, then it will instead attach the training annotation over the top of it and colour the door green. On top of that, it uses a TF glow entity, and anything which is parented to the door gets a green outline. Also, you can direct people to look at prop dynamics as well, and it uses a slightly different phrase, and it uses a different sound file. As you can see, investigate this. It doesn't matter if you've got props that have no target name or have the same target name, because the plugin stores the target name temporarily, changes the, well, gives the glow, and then changes the target name back immediately. And the good thing is that TF Glow, after you've given it its target, you can change the target name of the object that it's glowing, and it will still continue to glow. But there is, of course, a timer built in, and every time you direct somebody, the old direction is removed, so as not to cause confusion. We do, of course, have the ability to issue commands to the red people. I don't have a system where you can type a command or type a phrase and it comes up as text on the screen, because that uses the training message HUD, and the only way you can use that is by using an extension such as the send proxy extension, which tells clients or pretends to clients that the training HUD is active. And I don't like relying on extensions and other plugins and what have you. I try to keep things in one plugin where I can. So I think it's probably best if people rely on verbal communications and text, but should they not have a microphone, they have the option to use common instructions, which are the kinds of phrases that I can remember from having played maybe about 3 hours of Jailbreak in total. You can see here, move to the yellow line, move to the red line. The phrases that I type I put into my own console just to confirm to myself that the phrases have been transmitted, but in reality anybody else who sees me will see the phrase coming at my head, and they'll also hear a little sound effect as well to draw attention to me. There's phrases here for directing the guard. Somebody has escaped, there's one there. I count too few prisoners. It's easy to add more if need be. You just have to modify the menu file and then add the translation phrases. Oh yeah, did I mention everything in this plugin lives in a translation file? Everything is translated, including the training annotations as well that appear on people. Move to here, that's translated as well. Oh, did you just see the radial menu system? I'll come back to that in a second. Let me go back to spawn, if I can remember where it is, without killing myself. Where's the red player? There he is, right. I have of course built in the ability to see the name of the player that you're looking at, as well as their health. The health is actually easy. All you have to do is set a property on the player that turns into a mini-boss, which is something I believe from MVM, but thankfully it works in other modes as well. If I want a player to be marked for death, then I can
come get some, you frickin' wuss.
Mark them for death. They get a red outline for 5 seconds and a training annotation. The red outline can be seen through walls,
Let's do this.
which you might think is a bit of a concern, but to combat that, it only lasts for 5 seconds, and the red is not a bright red. It's slightly transparent. The good thing is that it works at range as well. So if the Warden happens to spot a player who has escaped, they can do that, and it gives the rest of the officers a brief glimpse of their location, the map. And the Warden is the only person who can do that, so it creates incentive for the prisoners to kill the Warden as soon as they can. And because the Warden is slightly taller than everybody else, then they have no problem singling them out. I have mute options, of course, built in. I can mute all the red prisoners at once, or I can mute individual prisoners. And if they are muted by the admin basecom plugin built into source mod, oops, then I won't be able to mute them, and the plugin will not override their mute, because I wouldn't want to interfere with, you know, the admins individually muting disrupted players. So there's that. There's the normal size option as well, of course. So that's pretty much it for the menu system. The admin menu has some commands that you can use for debugging purposes. You can remove the Warden ship from yourself. You can remove your own ammunition just to see if it works. And to test the ammunition stripping on certain combinations of weapons, because unfortunately it's not perfect. For instance, the plugin detects the clip value, or the size of a clip that the player's weapon has, and if it's -1, then it ignores it. But some weapons, like the Cowmangler, have a clip size of 20, even though it has no ammunition. So if you strip its clip, then it will refuse to fire. So there's going to have to be some custom weapon solutions in the future. So playtesting is going to have to take care of those. The help system opens a message of the day window that directs to a post on our Steam group that just gives you an introduction to the commands and abilities you can use, and there's a link at the bottom for people to submit suggestions. So yes, there is a radial menu. If you hold down plus use, if you bound it, then you can select an item at the top or left or bottom. There is no right option at the moment. And just release, and it will select that option. This is designed to be a quick way of getting into the menu system and using common functions without having to pause and type. You can select something, and you can right click to reset your selection. Unfortunately, it also transmits your weapon, but most weapons shouldn't have that issue. You can also use voice commands to do things as well. If you press Z and 3 to go, 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 then you can do the targeting reticle that way. And to help prevent voice spam, the go, go, go voice command from the Warden is only played 1 out of every 3 times. If I want to mark somebody for death, I can press C and then battle cry.
Put 'em up, pal.
And that's pretty much it, really. That's all I can think of anyway. There are some sound effects built in that are used in various different places. Some of the chat messages have them. I haven't applied them to every chat message. The idea is that because, well, I'll start from the beginning. On servers that have a lot of coloured text and fast-moving text, I always find it difficult to pick messages out sometime. So with this plugin, I tried to use a kind of traffic light system of colours that didn't use team colours, avoided the use of red or blue because that could be confusing and difficult to read. I also didn't use a 2-letter prefix here like JB. I used the full word jailbreak because a word is easier to read immediately than a 2-letter prefix like DV or whatever. Some of the debugging commands. JB text demo. If you've been tinkering with the colours, which you can do in the translation file, then you can test them after you've saved your changes and reloaded the translation file in the server console by doing that command. And it will give you some example phrases and the colours that they use. It will also explain where the colours are used. So a yellow message is a general plugin message that's sent to all clients. Green is a personal response to people, usually when they do a command. Orange is an important public message, which is rarely used, and red are only debugging messages or messages for errors. There are some times where you would like to do an admin command, and the output of an admin command is shown to other admins as well. And I believe that is in red. But there aren't many admin commands. The Warden selection system at the moment uses an opt-in system. You have to type /W. There are no preferences like there are in Deathrun. You have to reapply every time you are made a Warden. So once you've put your name in the pool, it will stay in there until you are made Warden. I believe that's on a per map basis. You can always remove your name as well by typing the same thing. And you can't see it, but the Warden selection system uses a cue point system. It's like a background cue point system. Every 30 seconds, live players get 1 point, 1 cue point. And at the start of a round, the Warden is selected on the blue team based on the players with the highest number of points. So this rewards players who stay alive for the longest, even on the red team. And if you're made Warden, then your cue points are removed completely. So it means it's a bit more fair. The players who are more active, who can stay alive for longer, because obviously that is the goal of the game, are allowed to be Warden more often versus the players who maybe aren't that skilled. In practice, I think it sounds pretty good in theory, but in practice we'll just have to see how it works. And if you ever like to see an overview of the point system and player preferences and stuff, you can use JB data command, which is an admin command, and it prints to your console a table of values. It shows you the client index numbers on the left, their user IDs, their Steam ID, their name, and on the right hand side you can see their cue points. You can also see their flags, and the flags are separated into two sets of bits or bit fields. The first one is session flags, which are flags for the session, which is whilst the player is connected to the server throughout multiple maps, the server session. And the second set of flags is the permanent flags. Because this code is taken from my Deathrun plugin, which uses database storage to store preferences long term, those flags are still there, and I haven't removed them because I may want to use them in future, but you can pretty much disregard them. From right to left, the session flags, I can't exactly remember what they are, so let's have a look at the source code. Right at the top of the source code file you can find my bit fields. So from right to left it's welcomed, which keeps track of whether or not the player has been welcomed in that server session. Officer, which is whether or not they're an officer. There's also Warden, and then prisoner. These are stored because it's easier to do that than it is to do a complicated series of operations, such as are you on the red team, are you alive, are you 20% extra size. It's easier just to give people bit flags and then check them. And then you have one for Warden's largeness. So if the Warden goes into the menu, if they are large, then the option is shown there to remove their size. But as soon as they remove it, the option disappears. And then the final flag is once Warden, so which keeps track of whether the player is opted in to become a Warden or their name is in the Warden pool. What other commands do I have? that I can't remember right now. Right, yes, we've done JB. WN for Warden menu. WR JB help. Right, yes, there's a couple of commands for adding points to people. You can add points to me. Oh, looks like I've got a little bug there with the translation phrases. So you can grant people queue points if you want them to go into the Warden position next, for instance. You can also set points of players as well. So if you don't want somebody to be a Warden, you can reduce them to 0 or whatever. And you can see those changes reflected in the table. Ta-da! Only admins can use that, of course. And that's pretty much it, really. There are other ones as well. There's L flags, which is something that shows you your listening flags. Source mod, in order to control whether or not you can communicate to people or you can hear voice chat, uses listening flags. And to make sure that the system was working properly, I used that debugging command so I could get my listening flags to make sure that everything was working. And I left that command in should you want to experiment with it yourself. And the final debug command is clip vals, which shows you the value of the clips of your weapon. So the slots are on the left, and then clip 2 is rarely used, so clip 1 is the main one to focus on. You can see I have a clip of 4, and then 5, and then -1. So 4, 5, and then the third one, -1, doesn't use clips. And that's it, really. So if you have any questions or suggestions, feel free to post them up in the project channel on our Discord server, which I'll be creating very soon. And hopefully we can get some playtesting done on this. If you're a mapper and you're interested to know how it works, well, it doesn't use a map config file. It just searches for common entity names. The idea of this plugin was to allow us to test jailbreak maps quickly without having to mess around with the config file and what have you. So there are some downsides. This plugin doesn't support, say, free days, last requests, war modes, things like that. It's just a basic plugin to give you the core game mode. I may add features like that in the future, it's difficult to say. But for now, the idea is that you can just throw a jailbreak map onto the server and just play it straight away. Alright folks, thank you very much for your time.